and so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, recording in progress.
All right,
Hello, hello,
here
everyone.
we go.
Here we go.
Hello,
I'm Dawn.
here we go. So,
The U.S.
and
half
I'm
Earth
Tracy,
Partnership from this is our lovely Tracy.
and Tracy for the Canadian portion.
Canadian side. And today we are going to talk about and all that comes around that the Diddy verdict, because that was kind of surprising.
Yes.
From the evidence I heard, I thought they had him. I did. I really did. And so either we didn't hear whatever but those people heard,
Yeah.
or it was heavily edited so that we only heard to make it seem like he was going to be convicted because and again, we're looking at it from a woman's perspective that
I,
listening
you
to
know,
Cassie's testimony and the other women, I thought our testimony was very believable. I did. But then again, you had to have been in an abusive relationship
slam
to be
dunk.
able to resonate or relate to what she was saying as real and
Yeah.
not just made up because she was with him for the money, which is where everybody went. That the only reason she stayed was because of the
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I don't believe that it was made up at all. And honestly, what's kind of floating around the internet right now is with the way things America is going, right? And obviously I'm looking at it from an outsider's
right.
perspective, right? With the way things America is going, there aren't a lot of surprises given who's in power, right? Like the things that he's doing kind of make sense based on the things that he's said in the past,
Done
and
in the
people didn't
past.
necessarily want to
Yeah.
believe it, right?
Right.
But this one has surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like videos are getting made that say, like X, Y, and Z. Am I surprised? No. But this happened. Am I surprised? Fuck yes. Like, a lot of it seemed like it should be a slam dunk, right?
Yes.
So, from my perspective, and we've talked about this before, there is a pervasive tone, let's call it, of hating women.
Yes.
It just we're not believed, we're gold diggers, we're only in it for the money, for the fame, whatever. Like, doesn't whatever you want, it just feels like, well, and even like with the Roe v. Wade, I realized that it was 50 years old, and so maybe the laws around it needed to be looked at again based on this day and age. But for it to be completely wiped out,
Yes.
is like they really don't want us to stand up. They don't want
No,
us
they
to have
don't.
any rights. They don't want us to, you know, be human.
No, there are men in our Congress that if you're married, they want the husband to be able to vote on behalf of the whole family. They don't, there are men in that Congress right now that are not that old. It's not just the old ones, which the old ones are a big problem, but have gone on record saying that
Wow.
in the Christian household, which that's a whole different topic in and of itself, the Christian
Yeah.
nationalists that everybody has such a problem with. It's not the religion of Christianity, it's the Christian nationalists that people have a problem with because they want it to rule the United States,
Oh.
regardless who you are or what your religion is, or if you even have one. And
Yeah,
so
see, and I'm spiritual, but I'm not
I'm
religious,
not
so I don't
religious.
really
I
have a
used
whole
to be
lot of
religious, but I left in
eh,
commercialized religion way behind when you realize that it's all man-made.
yeah.
Rules were made by men for men in a system that supports men. There are no women's voices in any of it
Yeah.
by design.
Considering that and I'm only learning this now because of another program that I'm taking, but that one of Jesus's, I believe, staunchest supporters was Mary Magdalene
Yes.
and Thecla,
Yes.
who a lot of people don't even know about. I'd never heard of her until I started following this specific coach, and then like, so it's kind of interesting that the ones who, outside of like Peter and John and Paul and all of those guys that I don't really understand, so we're spreading the word. It was women that were spreading the word. It
Right.
was the women who stayed by him and did all of the wrappings
Yes.
and
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, it always seems really interesting to me that there is this pervasive need to dim women in general.
Yes, and
To
it's
like,
hard to believe we've rolled backwards. It's like not that
yeah,
we had all the equal rights, we weren't getting equal pay and equal promotions and different things in the workplace, but in the last year, specifically since Roe versus Wade got, it's like when that happened, it like opened the floodgates to
yeah.
start dialing back women's presence again. And people kept saying this, if you want to know why women never speak up when bad things happen, all you have to do is look at the Diddy verdict. Because we're never believed. It doesn't matter what you if you stay and you're being abused, well, why didn't you just leave? Okay,
Yeah.
so she tried to leave and he beat the holy hell out of her. It's on videotape, him
Yeah,
dragging her
that's the
by
one at
her
the hotel
hair
or whatever, right? Where
down
he was,
a
yeah, yeah.
hotel. People knew this was happening. All these men watching it happen, no
Yeah.
one intervened and tried to help this one particular girl. And
And
it's,
who knows how
they
many
were,
more
and
there
she
were
wasn't the only
before or
one, but
after, right? Like,
yeah. And they
yeah,
want to know why you don't speak up. It's because to what end? What happens to
yeah.
her now? What happens if he actually does get out on bail? This guy still has a lot of power because he still has a lot of money. And that's where it all comes in, power and money, that he has such a far reaching ability that where's she going to hide? Because we know the men, the protectors, are not going to protect her. They've already proven that.
Well, it's, yeah, and for me, it's also not even just about women speaking up. We're trying, we're not being heard. So then what about the men who are witnessing it? And as far as I'm concerned, there is some validity to guilty by association,
Yes,
only
I agree.
because if they are there and they are witnessing it but not standing up, how complicit are they? They're 100% complicit in it
They're
because,
100%.
I mean, as a bystander, it should be up to them to say, hey, dude, this is wrong.
Right.
But money and power, what does he have on them? Are they going to get ostracized if they stand up? So it's like this vicious cycle of just shut up and
Yeah,
put up
men
and shut
would
up,
rather
whatever.
do the wrong thing and be accepted by other men than they want to step in and make the world a safer place for women. They did, it's like we always say, sometimes you have to choose a side, and they have. And I don't know how many
Oh,
different
yeah,
ways they have to tell us this before we get it through our thick heads, because women are still, there's a lot of us out there that will
I
do
can change him.
anything to have a relationship.
Yeah,
Literally,
because
we
we can
will
change
do
him.
anything. We will chameleon ourselves into whatever identity we need to. Forget who
Yeah.
we are. What does he want? What does he need? What do I have to be so that he can be the man I think he is, not the man he's showing
Or
me
the
to be?
potential that I see in him.
Yes,
I
the
see the
potential. God, the
potential.
potential. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it. I'm
We
sure
all
we all
are.
are guilty of it
I
at
don't know
one
a
point or
single one
another,
who
right?
isn't. Yeah.
And I think in a very sort of roundabout way, because of course this is all over the news and stuff like that, this is our mission, I guess, let's call it. Our vision, our mission, our, passion that we're here for is we might talk about mindset and we might talk about style as a way to help you authentically see yourself and navigate the world, I think. But really, it's this that's
Yeah.
sort of at the core of what we do. Like if you really drill down beneath the mindset and the style and all of that stuff, which might in some ways seem a little superficial, mindset's not, but
Yes.
people might not see it as being the thing. Style can be seen as superficial, but I feel it sort of
But it's
triggers
part of your
something in the brain
personality.
to have
What
us
goes
show up a little differently, more
right.
confidently. But I think really at the core of it all, what we want is women to see the value in themselves that their friends see, that their family sees, that strangers see in standing up and not falling for this. I have to have a relationship to be worthy, or I'm going to set aside myself for this person.
Right.
Even with friends, I don't
Yeah.
know how many times I've caught myself doing, saying, or acting a certain way because I want to be accepted by people, right?
Oh,
Especially when we're
right.
younger, and I think that just then trickles into the relationships and the wanting to have a man around and all of this stuff. And
You froze. Go ahead.
While I think really, oh yeah, you froze too. There we go. I think feminism kind of got co-opted a little bit into whatever. At the heart of it, I want women to not just be independent, but like in the sense of like, I am woman, hear me roar, I don't
Right.
need a man, I can do everything on my own. While that's great, I think it's more about these are my values and I'm not going to change them.
Right.
These are what I stand for and I'm going to stand by it. And having relationships within that,
Right.
but not changing ourselves, bending and molding ourselves into being what we think people want.
Right. And sometimes
So that
that's
then when it
exactly it.
comes to these
We
relationships, we can
change
stand
based,
up.
yeah, we change based on what we think they want. And sometimes they haven't even asked you to change. That's the other thing.
No.
Men do often ask, try to conform you into a mold. They do that all the time. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes we preemptively jump into it for them, where we will
Yeah.
assess them because we're really good at assessing people and what kind of, what's going to make them happy. And then we become that even
Yeah.
before they've asked or demanded it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because why? Because it
Well,
comes
and
with,
sometimes we project
we do.
and it might not even be what they want or need
It may not
or,
be. Yeah.
like as you say, we're doing it preemptively, but are we doing it because we think it's something that they want, or
Yeah.
as you say, they've said it, right?
And again, maybe that's a lot of the time why it doesn't also work. And we project what we think they want. We become this thing and things just get worse, because we've decided for them exactly who it is we needed to be. And then we get all upset when it doesn't work out. We've changed ourselves into something we're not for something they never asked us to be. And
Yeah.
then we're devastated because now all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And then you got to start all over with the next one.
Yeah. And it would just be so much easier if we could own who we are. Now, granted, part of what this work for us came about was because so many of us don't know, right? Like you grow up in your teens and your peer pressure and beauty ads and I mean, influencers today,
Yes.
back when we were growing up, what was it? It would have been mostly celebrities and singers, really.
Yeah.
There was
And
no
you
such
had
thing as like an
supermodels and
influencer.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we think that's what people in general want, just as you're growing up, right? In the circle of
Yes.
friends that you have. And even then, I found myself twisting myself up and bending over into things that I thought was needed or warranted or what I thought fit. That, I get into my 30s and 40s and I have no stinking clue who I am.
Yeah.
And you look back in time and you realize that you've picked guys that maybe deep down are like your dad, and heaven forbid you date your dad, and
Yes.
or the ones that you think are socially acceptable in your circle of friends,
Yes.
but again, probably not people that you really care about. And so here we are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and we don't know who we are. And I think in this day and age now, it's more important than ever that we be who we were meant to be. And whatever that looks like, we just need to come back to being able to stand up and, you know, b- be believed when we say something. Cassie
Right.
said that she was abused. How come you just don't leave? Well, you can't,
You can't.
depending on, what's going on, right? And
Right.
we need to believe her, not
Right.
shove it under the rug, you know?
That's the question that everybody asked her, is the victim blaming. Why didn't you just leave? Why aren't people asking, why did this man insist on abusing her? Why wouldn't he just let her go when he clearly didn't like her? Certainly didn't love her, but I don't even, he did obviously didn't even like her. And which is that's the other part of that topic, is that so many men don't
Well,
really like women. They want women for what they can do for them, like a kitchen appliance. We've
that
talked
I was going to
about.
say, like, that's almost yeah, I think that's even a bigger question too, or not even a bigger question, but it's just
We have it
a
backwards. That's the thing.
pervasive
It's like,
attitude.
yeah, again, they put all the responsibility back on the woman. Why didn't you? Why didn't you, whatever that fill in the blank? And instead of saying, well, the person who caused the problem, the perpetrator, why did he? What made him think he had the right
Yeah.
to do this to this woman? What made that man, his bodyguard that was standing in the hall watching her being drugged down the hotel corridor, what made him think he could just stand there and do nothing and then act like
Yeah.
he, I couldn't do anything. And see, in that case, it is because that man wanted to be accepted by Diddy more than he wanted to save that woman from the suffering that she was going
He
through.
wanted a job
He
more than
wanted
he
a
wanted
job.
to,
Yeah,
and
powerful man. They network all over the place and they're all connected and
I
they
can
can
make
be
your life
valuable.
miserable. You'll never work in this town again.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the thing.
like,
And so if he's as a man is thinking that, why would they think that woman would feel any different because she has less power than he does by
well,
design?
not, yeah, and not even just perceived power, but like physical
Physical
power. I mean,
power.
we are just smaller in general,
Yeah.
unless you're a bodybuilder or a
Yeah.
weightlifter of some kind, or,
But even still, he had so
whatever.
many people working for him. There was people watching her everywhere she went. She was being spied on. I think maybe I don't know if it was her or a different woman that maybe had a fling with the personal trainer that he had hired for her. And yeah, he
Oh,
had people following them all the time.
wow.
Yeah, and then he threatened that man. The personal trainer, I think he was the one. He got up there and testified that he came home and people from Diddy's had been in his house. They were waiting for him.
Oh dear.
I think somebody
Yeah,
car
see,
bombed his car in his driveway. And
yeah, that was what somebody had said was why they were so surprised was because that happened, which I didn't know, and could actually be traced back to him.
yeah,
Like it's known that that's what he did. So how on earth can you find him not guilty
how
of all
did
these
you
other
find him?
charges and
That's what
stuff?
I'm saying. It's like, and I didn't go look at the makeup of the jury to see how many men and women, but again, women are also part of that problem because we have bought into because that's kind of what it hinged on was her. Basically, it seemed like they made her the middle of this thing when it was such a much larger thing. But none of
Yeah.
the men got blamed the way she did. Like, well, why didn't you just quit your job to the personal trainer guy? I think he paid him 50,000 a year or something to train this one girl. Well, nobody got onto them. Nobody got onto the bodyguards or the other people for staying employed by this monster who set up all the
Yeah.
freak offs and what have you for the hotel workers. How many hotel workers knew about all these freak offs that were taking place in their hotel? And they didn't
Yeah.
because they wanted the money and or an invitation. One or the other. The hotel wanted the
Well,
money. The people maybe wanted an invitation. I don't know.
or they didn't want to be um what do I want to say? They didn't want their reputation
Yes.
sullied by the
Yes.
fact that they were complicit,
Yes.
right? So we don't know that's going on. We're, oh my goodness, we're so horrified. Like we, oh,
Yeah, it was like how much did they say they spent? I don't know what the price tag on the cleanup of these things was. It was in the like 5 digits, the cleanup after these things. It was gross, you know. And it's like,
oh,
so how many, that took a lot of personnel. Obviously, the lower paid housekeepers, they're probably not going to say anything because they desperately need their job, but management knew,
yeah.
and nobody
Yeah, I
said a
just,
word.
there's some days I just don't know what this world is coming to. And I don't even know what the answer is or the solution to helping women stand up and be
But
heard,
that's what I say.
right?
You've got to
Because,
find who you are. You've got to find your center where you know your value to such a degree that a man like that walking in, even if he's charming as all get out, you know who he is. And you
well,
wouldn't
and I have to
dream of
also
taking up
wonder
with him.
too if, I'm not condoning what he did or any of these people did in any way, shape, or form at all. But I'm just thinking back to my experience with one of my exes. I feel like they must have a radar that says
They
this person
do.
is
Oh,
vulnerable, this
absolutely.
person is whatever, and so she's going to be an easy mark,
Yes. No,
right?
I absolutely
So
believe they do.
so if we can help women, other women can help women if we actually stop fighting amongst ourselves
That's the key right there. Yeah.
and come together and, as you say, become solid in who we are, that kind of makes what they're doing null and void, right?
It
Like
does.
they don't have the pool of, vulnerable women that they can now choose from
Right.
because we're standing on our own 2 feet and we're saying, this is what we stand for, this is who we are, and really nothing's going to make us
Yeah, and
deviate
you
from
don't
that. I mean,
tolerate the intolerable. Stop tolerating. I heard Mel Robbins say this years ago. She said, if you want to know why you're upset or frustrated most of the time in your personal life, she said, somewhere you're tolerating the intolerable. And I have never
ooh,
forgotten that
that's
because we don't
good.
realize how often we do that. We are so unhappy about things. It could be in your family life or your home life because we don't speak up. We tolerate it and we stuff it and we tolerate it and we swallow it, whatever it is, until may probably either have a nervous breakdown or you explode. One or the other generally happens,
Oof.
or you hit your 50s and you really don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, you know
Because
what? And that hits hard because I can, like, yeah, there's lots of things going through my head right now where I can say, yeah, you know what? I was tolerating the intolerable.
you think about it, if you go back through the things that you were most upset about, you were tolerating something that everything inside of you was screaming, stop tolerating
Yep.
this because it violated who you were, your values, your standards, your self-worth, your dignity, everything. And you were chipping away at your own identity. Like, this is a question I think I asked today there on this video that I sent her a TikTok. And it was about, what have you given up for a man because he ruined it for you? And there's a lot of things women give up because things we might have loved. In your case, I think it was a sport. In mine, it was like different, like fitness stuff that I was doing because he made me so miserable complaining about it that it took all the joy out of it. And so I
Well,
stopped.
see, and for me, it was I wanted something that was mine, but he had it in his head that we had to do everything together.
God, yes. Oh my,
And I was like, but if we do everything together, then what on earth are we going to talk about?
what's going to keep us
Like
interested? Yeah,
you've got to have things that you like to do that you don't want me around for. And he was like, no. I was like, I call bullshit, but okay. And yeah, he insisted that I couldn't play unless he played with me because he didn't like the idea of anybody hitting on me. And I was like, uh, one, who says they're going to? Two, who says that it's going to work even if they do? And three, 9 times out of 10, I'm playing with men or women who are already in partnerships and
right,
this is just something that they do, right? Like you're
right,
projecting, although at the time I didn't understand that, like I hadn't quite come to that whole like projection
right. You
thing
have
at
to
that
get
point,
there.
but
Yeah,
yeah, I was just like, I want to do something by myself. If you've got to come with, I said, you're welcome to come and watch, cool, support me that way, but I don't necessarily want to play with you. Like I want something that's
yeah,
mine. And that's what
yeah.
sort of ruined it. It was just so much of a battle to be able to go out and do something that was me
Right. Because
that
then you're
I just,
selfish. Yeah, you don't care
yeah,
about me. You don't care about that you're upsetting me, and you're selfish for wanting to have an activity that's just yours.
yep,
Yeah. Or that you're just doing it for yourself. That was me. I was like, I was doing, working out and running and things because I just enjoyed it.
yep,
But he was so, it's kind of the same thing. He was so miserable because he wanted me to be doing everything with him. He didn't like being left alone without,
yeah.
I guess, something to do. I'm not even sure what, but he
But
just
it
felt
was
like,
okay if I was miserable alone
yes, yeah, absolutely.
because his idea of fun was going out and smoking and drinking with his brother and his
Yes.
sister-in-law and friends and various other things. Well, I'm not a big drinker. Like I might have one to be social, but I don't want to just
Go
sit
out
on a
and
dock
get
and drink
sloshed.
all day,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
boring as all I don't know what.
Well, that, and there's nothing
So,
more pleasant than being the only sober one in a group full of drunk
right?
people. It is. You don't realize how stupid you look, people, if you've ever got drunk. We
Oh
look
yeah.
stupid when that happens, so let's not do that.
Yeah, and his thing was that he always wanted to unwind on Friday night, and I'm like, dude, I'm exhausted on Friday. Like we could do this on Saturday and we do it once in a while, but I'm exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And it was a huge argument, and I said, okay, fine, I'm coming, but I'm going in my own car. What? Why? We have to go together. I'm like, no, you want to stay until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm done by 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go home, and there's no buses up here. It's miles away from everybody because of where we lived. Everything was spread out. It was on a
Right.
lake, and everything was spread really far out, right? So I was like, I will go with you, but I want to leave when I want to leave. I'm not waiting for you. you can make your own way home or you can crash here because you're drunk or whatever, right? But yeah, that was a huge battle. But that was one I stuck my ground on. I was not
Good for
going to
you.
exhaust myself just because he wanted to have fun.
Yeah,
So yeah, they do tend to suck the life out of everything.
they do. They really do. The one of
And
the
we put up
biggest
with it.
ones.
I put up with it for far longer than I
Oh,
should
years,
have.
decades I put up with it because that's what we're trained to do. We're conditioned to it's okay if we're miserable. It's not okay if someone else is. It's like we have to set ourselves on fire to keep other people warm every day.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how you grew up, but that's definitely how I think I kind of grew up. Because we had a conversation once, my mother and I only say this because I know she'll never watch YouTube, but um, she's always told me dreams don't pay the bills. So it's good to have them, but like you can't make a living with them. And yes, they argued a lot, but they shared the same core values. So they always knew that like they could work things out after they had argued. But all we
Yeah,
ever saw really was we didn't see the arguments. They always did that behind closed doors or when we were in bed or whatever. But, it kind of made it seem like, and the older we got, the more the arguments seemed to happen. Now, at that point, of course, getting close to the 40s and that whole fuck it bucket thing, right? Like, I'm sure that was playing a role. Um, but yeah, to me, life seemed sort of, or relationships, marriage, always kind of came across as being difficult.
yes,
And they shared separate interests. They rarely ever did anything together. And so, of course, for me to say, well, I want something that's mine, I don't want to spend all of my waking time with you, that's what I grew up with.
right.
Right. And yeah, so when relationships were hard, I thought, okay, well, this is normal. But I was always miserable. And I'm like, is this really how I want to be for the rest of my
Is
life?
this it? Yeah, is
But
this all
apparently
it is
having this,
for the rest of your life?
yeah,
Yeah,
but sharing the same core values made it okay because they basically, sort of lived the same way. I
yeah,
have now since been able to get her to understand that we did bend a lot
yeah,
for that man,
yeah.
you know? Um, and I reached a point 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I was done bending.
Good for you.
Haven't spoken
But
to him
look how, yeah,
since.
and look how many years though it came you to come to terms with that, and that's hard because that's your dad.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. And mom actually thought that that might be part of why I had my little mental breakdown that I had a couple of years ago. She's like, and I was like, no, I don't think that had anything to, oh, it's your dad. It's got to be in the back of your
Yeah,
mind. And
I
I'm
mean, but
like,
yeah, because
it was probably this much
yeah,
in a slew of other
other
things,
things that were
right?
going
Like it
on.
was just me reaching 45 or whatever I was at the time and going, I am my own damn sovereign being. If he can't accept that, I got no time for it.
Yes, because if your father or your parent or whoever hasn't accepted you after when you're in your 40s, it's not going to happen. If they can't disrespect who you are as an individual and say, well, you're not like, okay, you're living your own life, you're doing your own thing, you're your own person. But so many parents, especially the older parents, they do not accept that. But again, because their core values were the same. Now, so both my parents are dead. My father died when I was 12. My mom died 6 weeks before my oldest daughter was born. So they're all
Oh
gone.
no.
But were they ever happy? I'm not
Yeah.
saying they weren't, maybe they were compatible, they were good companions, but were they happy? Are they happy? And I think there's a lot of older couples, which is why the gray divorce thing has come into play so much, because little by women are finding their voice and they're like, you know what, I do get to be happy. I don't
Yep.
have to keep tolerating the intolerable. And what they're doing may not be the worst thing in the world, but that doesn't mean it's okay for you. If there's something about that relationship that makes you wildly incompatible because you can't stand it, it violates one of your core values, that gets to be okay. That's reason enough. And that's where I don't think men
Yep.
quite understand that. I don't know what that is. Did you see that? It popped up on the screen. It was weird.
No.
Oh, some weird thing. That they don't understand that, yeah, women are applying for 70 to 80% of the divorces. We file far more than men do, but it's only when women reach a point that they cannot tolerate whatever that thing is, one more day. Because women don't just leave.
Yeah.
They
No.
stick it out. They try, they try, they
Yes.
try, they try. And only when they
Oh,
can't
yeah.
wait another minute will they usually go file for divorce.
But then also the identity crisis kind of comes in at that point too,
It
right?
does because
So
it's all you've ever known.
again, that's where we sort of come in to help
Yeah.
figure out that identity crisis. Did you know who you were when you were younger and then things just chipped away at
Yeah.
you and
What
now
was
you
the
kind of forget,
when was
or
the
you
last
want to
time
get
you
back to that
remember?
person, but
Yeah,
you don't know what that means?
exactly. It's important.
Or,
You have to know who you are. And and some women like me, because I came from such a messed up family, my parents were both alcoholics. My memory from when I can remember everything being great, like I felt okay as a human, I was like 5. So I literally spent my
oh,
entire life thinking there was something wrong with me because of what was going on in my family. And it took years
right.
of personal development work to get to the point where I realized what that had, it was just you have to rebuild it from scratch sometimes. Sometimes you rebuild it from
Well,
15
it's the
years.
environment, right?
Yeah,
The environment sets us up for
it
whatever,
really
right?
does.
So
You
if
just have to rebuild, and it's okay. That's one thing that I used to live with. I had so much regret. Like I've wasted all these years of my life making one mistake after another, picking one bad
mm,
relationship after another, da 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 da, and all the things. And I realized it's like, no, it's just something that happened. The
yeah,
second you decide you get to choose, you get to start over. And the only reason you feel
yeah.
regret is because you're comparing yourself to what someone has probably told you your life should have looked like. Because yeah, it
And
does.
and also for the women that we're talking to, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, you kind of look in the rearview mirror and think half your life is over. And it's like, maybe it is, but you've still got half your life to go.
Yes.
So can we make a more positive change now?
Oh,
Can we,
yeah.
get to the root of it? Like, yes, that happened. And this is something that has taken me a while is yes, all the bad choices, mistakes, relationships, money, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, all of that has made you who you are now. And so now we just need to get back to what does that mean to live a joyful, happy, authentic,
Authentic.
value driven
Yeah, you get
life,
to decide who
right?
you are. That's the
Because,
glorious thing. Yeah, you get to decide this time.
yeah,
No one breathing down your neck. There's no list of the shoulds like we
yeah,
talked about last week. You get to decide. And that is when you realize how liberating that is and that you don't have to compare yourself to anybody. You literally get to create yourself from the ground up. Who do you want to be? How do you want to look? How do you want to speak? And I think of Madonna when I think about you. I don't know if you remember Madonna when she first came on the scene, and she had a very strong, like a New Yorker type accent. That's gone. She has whatever,
yes,
taken her voice training or whatever. The woman has no accent anymore. Charlize Theron is another one. She's South African. You wouldn't
she
know
has
she was
no
South
South
African if you
African.
didn't know she was South African. She's got a Midwestern accent now. It's like these women
Yeah,
have built who they are, and theirs is at
yeah,
in a different level, but all women can do the same thing. You get to decide
yeah.
everything
Well,
about
and I think the other piece to this too is that while I still catch myself doing this every once in a while, what I'm trying to do is stop thinking of these things as mistakes,
yes,
right? Like maybe they are, but it's correctable, it's fixable, or it's redoable, right? Like it might have been a mistake 5 years ago, but now I know what I don't like,
right,
or now I know what I want to do, right? So they're almost like life lessons, right? Like you can't learn without failing. And what's
right.
that? I think it's Will Smith who says it, fail fast, fail often, fail forward.
Yes. And again, the
Like you
reason why
can't,
do we think something's a mistake? Whether it's, women used to get such a hard time for getting divorced. It was like this scarlet letter that was painted on everything they did, which is why we have the salutations for women is Miss, Ms. or Mrs. They divide us by our marital status, whereas men are just misters. It's like the only reason we think we made a mistake ever, as opposed to, oh, well, that was interesting to learn. I didn't really like that. I'm not going to do that again. Is because someone set a standard for us that says this is
yeah,
the way your life was supposed to go.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
didn't work out like that.
And we need to start setting that standard.
Yes.
And whether the younger generation can take this on, like, come and listen to this and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. Like, I understand. Pineapple. You can cut some up. Okay. It's downstairs. Yes. And take this on, like, can hear what we're saying and take some of it to heart. Their 40s and 50s are going to be infinitely more fun than ours are right now while we're still trying to figure this out.
Yes.
But even now, I think, reaching the 50s and not giving a fuck and having this we do not care club out there right now, I think it's going to make what we're doing a little more fun, right? Like, we're now going to be able to remake ourselves in the image that we always
Yes.
maybe wanted to be, but we didn't know that we wanted that because that's not how we grew up.
Right. And without all the
Right.
baggage, because now we don't care anymore what anybody thinks. That's
Yeah.
the awesome
Yeah.
thing. It's like, yeah,
Oh, there's,
you stop caring what other people think. It's a whole different level of freedom. Like, you don't
oh,
have the mean girls in high school or wherever it is that you might be, that you're worried that they're going to ostracize you or, talk about you and whisper about you in the lunchroom or at the
or you're not in
PTA,
the
wherever
cool
it
club.
happens to be. Yeah, and in school, it's like once you stop caring, it is a whole different level of freedom. And I
I
think that's
still think
also why
it's,
women are starting to
I,
not jump into relationships in their older age. They're just hanging out with their girlfriends because they know as soon as, unfortunately, a lot of the older men, they do expect you to center your life around those. And the women are like, no, don't think so. And they go
yeah,
and do all these great things with their girlfriends and have the time of their lives.
yeah. Well, and especially, I think it's especially important for women who, now obviously this is going to be happening to me much later, but, women who are our age now and finding themselves as empty nesters,
Yeah.
right? They've centered their lives around, and I think we've talked about it before, they've centered their lives around their kids and their husbands, but now what do they do? And I think now is the perfect time to get back to your roots.
Yeah. Just
you
start
know,
moving
discovering
on.
who you are, rediscovering style and what that means to you, finding your voice. And, as you say, we tend to put up with a little bit less. Maybe you're finding that the life you curated for yourself isn't what you want. And you know what? I think also we want to be that permission slip to say, it's okay. It wasn't a mistake. You did what you did with the knowledge that you had. You created the life that you thought you wanted.
Right.
Maybe you still want it, maybe you don't. It's never too late to redo it,
Right.
right? To like incorporate bits and pieces of who you think you are or whatever. And maybe your kids and your husband are going to think you're nuts,
Yeah.
but it's your
And they
life.
probably will. And that's okay. You think your kids are nuts half the time. How many times have our kids dressed in a certain way or they do something and we're like,
Yeah.
what?
What are
It's
you thinking? Yeah.
completely different just because it's them looking at us thinking, what on earth are you doing, mom? You know?
Yeah. Well, and I guess a really good example of that to sort of bring it back to what we started with is look at what Cassie went through,
Yes.
right? With all of this Diddy stuff and the recordings in the hotel to where she is now,
Right.
right? Like, she's happy, she's content, she's found a husband who stands behind her 100%,
Right.
and I think she's now really discovering who she is, what she likes, what she wants to do with her life, and she's moving on.
Right.
And I think we all get to do that. And I think
You
we
get
all
to
need
do
to
that.
do
That's
that.
exactly, it's the permission slip. You get to move on. You are not stuck because this thing happened to you, or if you made a bunch, it doesn't matter. You get a do-over every single day that you wake up.
Yeah.
And so
Which
it's
is a
really
gift
just
in and of
decide.
itself
That's
half the
always
time,
the first step,
especially.
is make a decision.
Yeah.
You get to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, our internet connection today is not working very well, is it? Because you're frozen. Am I frozen? Because you're frozen.
Yes.
Okay.
Is a little sad because obviously my heart goes out to those in you were a little frozen. I goes. Bear with us. We get like what's happening down there in Texas. My heart goes out to the families of all the little girls that, are swept away and we don't know where they are. But as parents, we have to get up and we have to do, and we have to make a decision about what we're going to do with that, right? And I can't imagine having to bury my child,
Oh my
but
gosh.
at some point I would have to get up and move on, right? Like
Yeah, you do.
both
My
extremes,
grandmother
both are
did.
extremes in this situation, right?
Yeah,
You know, not knowing about your child, having to bury your child, dealing with all the abuse that Cassie did with Diddy and Lord knows how many other women.
right.
But at the end of the day, we still have to decide,
You have to
what are we
decide
going to
that,
do
yeah,
with?
somebody, when Jonathan passed away, somebody told me this, like, this is not going to make you feel any better right now. But, and it's like a double entendre thing. They said life is for the living. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
life is meant for you to go live, but life is for the people that are still here. You're still here. So
And
life
your
was
kids
meant
are
for
still
you.
here.
Yeah. And I never forgot that. And it took me a couple of years to accept it, but I understood what they were saying. It's like,
Yeah.
when the person, that people, like my grandmother, she had to bury both of her. She buried my mom and her brother. Both
Oh,
of her
wow.
kids died before her and her husband. So she literally had nobody. And I cannot fathom how she went on, but she did. She lived,
Yeah.
another 10 years, after my mother died.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, I don't know how but she did. And she wasn't unhappy. She wasn't miserable. She
No.
made plans and did things, and she still went on living, even with all
Which
that.
I would imagine probably also comes from the time that she came from, right? I would imagine she came through the Great Depression, and
Yeah,
so
she was
that
born in
was what you just
1909.
did,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. She lived through the
You
Depression.
just
She lived through a
did.
couple of
You
world
just
wars.
moved on, you
She was
just
born
kept
in
going,
1909.
and
So, yeah.
I
And it's like, yeah, when you look at this thing and tell you, it's horrible. And, and that's, funny, when a child dies, a lot of parents say
yeah.
that.
So I think while we are all super annoyed,
Yeah, I don't know why the internet looks like it's fine.
I think you came back.
Yep, there
You
you are
came back.
again. I was looking at the connection, but I
This is
have
going
a
to be one
high
of these just
bar, so I don't know.
oh, this is just going to be one of those weird videos. We'll make it work next time. Um, yeah, I think everything that we can take away from this is the world does not want us heard.
Yes.
The world does not want us seen. The world wants us barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. At
Yes.
least that's the impression I'm getting.
Basically.
Um,
But they still want you to pay
and
half the
I
bills.
think we've
Don't
all
forget
had
that.
enough.
Yeah, you need to be barefoot, pregnant in
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
kitchen,
right? Yeah,
doing all the things. But if you could pay half the bills too, that would be awesome.
yeah. And I think it's time that we all dipped into our fuck it bucket and said, get lost.
Yes.
That ain't happening.
Yes.
And we find our voices and, we stand up for what we want, being more authentic, dressing how we want, getting rid of things like age appropriate, because what does that mean? Getting rid of things like
Yeah.
normal,
Yeah.
what does that mean? I mean, we are all individuals and we just need to figure out what that means for us
For us,
and
it's an
shove them into the
individual
curb.
path, and your path doesn't have to look like anybody else's. There are some women who they want to still wear their hair like it was in the 80s, which we all love our 80s Aquanet hair. And then there's some
Don't
women who
we?
they're like, no, I will never look like that again. I'm going all gray and screw all of you. And that's also okay. All of it gets to be okay. It's just decide
Yeah.
how you're going to be the happiest. At the end of your life, it's going to be your life. And the only person who gets to judge if it was a good one is you, because
And
nobody's,
will you feel good
yeah,
if you continually try to mold yourself into something that you think people want?
yeah,
Cool. Go nuts.
yes,
Or are you going to wish that you had done something differently? Well, then guess what? Now is the time to do it differently.
exactly. And there's nothing holding you back. That's the beauty of it. It's like, if you think there is, it's probably just some resistance in your mind from your conditioning, which can be worked through,
Yes.
and then you get
Well,
to
and
decide.
I feel, again, outsider watching it, things aren't quite as bleak up here, though I imagine it's only a matter of time. But right now they're not so bleak. So, outsider looking in, I feel like what we're doing is so important because if they are trying this hard to squash women's rights, to, take away all the like bodily autonomy stuff and, every other thing under the sun that seems to be going on down there, that that tells me one of two things. And the most predominant one is, what are they so scared of if we do rise up?
Exactly. There's a
So
reason
that tells me
to have
now is the time.
power. Yeah. And again, it's because they're hanging, they know they're in, because that's a lot of the patriarchal mindset. There's only so much power and only one group can have it. And if we give you any of it, you're going to take our power away from us, as opposed to women saying it's an endless pie. The pie doesn't shrink, it just keeps expanding. There's enough for everybody. And it's a different of looking at it from a
Yep.
matriarchal point of view and a patriarchal point of view, because we're more inclusive typically, and we see that there's enough for everybody. We're not necessarily trying to take, we're just trying to exist. And that's where they just don't want us to do that. But women are getting braver, and we just want everyone to find their identity and their voice and then be able to embody that
Yes.
woman. Our internet connection is really, really terrible. Oh, there you are again. I was like, every time I say it's terrible, you come back. So maybe that's the magic word.
There you are again. Yeah, I was just thinking, you know what? Maybe with it being quite so terrible, we'll like end it there.
Yes.
So we apologize. The apology came a little late, but we apologize for the internet. If you like
Even
what we're
the
doing,
internet's
don't
out to
forget to
stop
like,
us.
comment. I know. Yeah, tech doesn't want us to speak on this. But yes, comment, like, share, subscribe, do all the good things. And we will, you know, depending on how bad it is, maybe we'll have to re-record this one. But we'll see. I'm going to take it as the universe saying, wait, they can't talk about this stuff, but we're going to keep talking about it.
We are. Maybe we'll even make a couple little shorts here and there this week to
Yes.
kind of complement this, to kind of drive the point home, because we really want women to find their identity and their voice and to be able to embody and be the woman they want to be. Because we can see this, we have this vision, we know what this world can look like when women find their voices and the embodying of that woman. And we're just here to help you do that.
So
There's
that you
room for
don't
everybody.
fall trap to the Diddies of the world.
We will not be diddified. We
Love
will not. We will
it.
not.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
wonderful.
on that note,
On that happy
let's
note, we will close this one out. But yes, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have questions, drop them. There will be also an email link in the description if you want to send us an email. If you don't want to make your stuff public, that's okay too. And we will see you guys
we'll
on the
see you in the
next
next
one.
one. All
Bye.
righty. Bye.